There's a joke that I'm adding. I should have taken a picture of it. It's something like conductor / voice / cowbell. So I've apparently added cowbell to my resume. I'm not a great. It's very hard to play. Well, anything well, but cowbell, don't take it for granted. It's hard.
Who let you have a cowbell?
It's a very interesting question. So one of the.
Hi everyone, welcome to OSA Backstage. I'm Dani Meyer. Sauce is taking a nap. We'll see if she makes her way over here. Happy season finale. Yes, this is our last episode of season 1, and it features the incomparable. You know what? Doesn't matter. It features the amazing Sarah Cranor and Alejandro Gomez-Guillen, plus Pat Pfister and Serena Reuten. Hi, Sauce. We broke a lot of records. It's the longest podcast to date. I would say I'm sorry, but I'm not. We also have the most references in a single episode, at least 27 that I was able to track down. I will put those in the episode notes and in the video as I can. It was so much fun. We recorded outside because we have some cat allergies. We didn't want to exacerbate those. So you're going to hear lots of birds. Like all of them. More birds than references. And we talked about everything. We talked about everything Baroque. These two are just phenomenal. I'm so glad that we were able to include them. They're performing this Sunday as part of the Omaha Chamber Music Society's summer concert series, Baroque Strings. It's June 22nd, 3 p.m. at the Omaha Conservatory of Music. They're wonderful. This was wonderful. Thank you all for a fantastic first season. Thank you for listening. We will see you again in August. Enjoy.
Pretty much.
All right, so I'm turning video on this time.
Wait, we're doing it? That's it? No preliminaries? No preamble?
No, I want to get all the good stuff
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Hair and makeup? No? Oh, hi.
Sarah already got the hair and makeup.
I got my hair.
Oh, yeah.
Turning my phone off. Thank you so much for coming to us. This is very kind.
Hey, thanks.
And post everybody.
Yes.
Are we posting?
You're
Are we
posting.
cheersing?
Cheersing.
Oops. Sorry. Cheers.
Okay.
Yeah, post it.
Thank you for coming to us. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being back in Omaha. It's so good to see you. Okay, so for our friend Chuck Line. Chuck, I made sure the video was on. We're also recording the audio. I can see
Good to see you, Chuck.
Sorry, deep cut. All right, now we're gonna check this. This is going great. There's gonna be so much background noise. It's gonna be every podcast lover's dream is to have a whole bunch of outside.
It's the wind and the birds.
Yeah.
Someone revving their engine?
That was 2 episodes ago.
It's absolutely going to happen. Someone's going to start mowing their lawn at 8:15. It's
of course.
Be amazing.
Great.
Have you two met before? I meant to ask this.
Several times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, at the audition for the first time.
Okay, great.
And then he came back as well. We went for coffee, so I have learned from his wisdom. We talked on the phone quite a few times, too.
Yeah.
Actually, I lived in the same apartment building that they lived in.
Which is smart, because you two went through so much fun with your apartment hunting when you first moved to Omaha. So that's good. Just start... Yeah. Okay, so this is not just
there's a lineage. Yeah.
Yes. No, we're friends.
Yes. Well, I don't have to introduce you two then. Would you two please therefore introduce yourselves? Sarah will be an old friend to OSA Backstage, but Alejandro, let's start with you. Introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alejandro. I have the distinct pleasure to be married to Sarah Cranor and also be a former assistant conductor of the Omaha Symphony and be back in the company of these lovely people. I'm currently director of orchestras at Arizona State University and doing some other stuff, but very glad to be here.
Amazing. Sarah, would you reintroduce yourself?
Yes, I am Sarah Cranor. I play violin of all kinds, Baroque, modern, regular, whatever, and I play with the Omaha Symphony in section. Sometimes. And
I just saw on Instagram that your violin bags that you hand make, one of them is currently being used by Augustin Hadler.
Yes. Yeah, I'm in 34 countries and a pretty good list of kind of heavy hitters. Actually, he reached out to me, which is so cool. He wrote me the kindest email, and he's like, I was given your bag as a gift years ago. It's wearing out. What do you have? And I sent him some things, and he's like, well, could you custom make me one? And
Yes.
of course. And then I was like, may I please send it to you? What's your address? And he's like, well, you have to let me pay for it. I'm like, no. So, yeah, he's so nice. So nice.
Oh.
Super cool.
Amazing.
So he has a custom bag.
And it's a beautiful color too. Like it's a beautiful like amber yellow, right? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah, with like blue paisley threads, and then it's lined in like a baby blue silk. It's very special.
Very French.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
it.
it's beautiful.
Pat, would you please reintroduce yourself?
I'm supposed to look at the camera next time. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you please scoot forward and then reintroduce? I'm so sorry.
With my pita chips. Patrick Pfister, principal trombone, proprietor of this house that we're sitting in front of.
That's exactly
That's
right.
what it is.
So this is our season finale,
Okay.
and we have spent the last half of this season talking to wonderful, interesting people about wonderfully interesting things. And we're finishing with you guys, so no pressure.
Yeah.
But something that, when you guys, we talked a little bit about this with you last time. That's our neighbor's dog. Also, really big fan of the Omaha Symphony and Omaha Chamber Music Society. So, something we didn't get to talk to both of you about, though, is that you two run, play in, perform, and execute a variety of groups, big and small, across various states. The United States as a whole, right? You do a lot of touring as well. What was the very first one that you put together? Do you remember?
Actually, yeah, because we were talking about it in the car. Otherwise, I'm not sure we would have. But the first one that we actually played together, planned together, performed together, all of it, actually was in the pandemic. So very early pandemic. The Blue Musen Symphony, which Alejandro used to be music director of, was supposed to have a concert the day after everything shut down or something really, really close like that.
And we're preparing Beethoven 5 was on the program, and it was the last rehearsal where we finally decided this is not gonna. It's
No, can't go for it.
that moment where you're like, oh, this is fine. No, it's not. No, it's not fine. So we
pivoted.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was thinking pivot. I was like, no, that word is cursed.
Yeah.
We pivoted.
And Friends with the Couch, that sense of pivot.
There you go.
But we put together a duo recital in our living room and live streamed it. And that was really fun, actually.
What was on it?
Leclair, Sonatas for Baroque violin.
They're amazing.
And then we did Prokofiev Sonata. And then this piece. Did we play this dance?
I think we played Sandstrom, and we also did Rosa. Nicholas Rosa.
Yeah.
Wait. Sandstrom as in Jan Sandstrom? As in the Scandinavian?
Yeah.
As in Sven David Sandstrom. I don't know if it's the same Sandstrom.
Sandstrom.
Very different.
Swedish. Also Swedish. But yeah.
How old?
He
Passed away maybe.
He passed away.
Years ago?
Yeah. He was
Related?
Really cool. Really amazing composer.
Okay, we're going to look that up.
Yeah.
Super amazing guy, actually. Alejandro played his. He was commissioned to rewrite Messiah with Helmut Rilling and the Bach Academy, and then later Oregon Bach Festival. Alejandro played that premiere, the world premiere, and the recording. I played, not the solo part, but I played in Sandstrom's violin concerto at Indiana University, and I was having coffee, and he came up one time and just handed me a score, and he's like, I know you're married to a violinist, please play this. And it's this duo, and it's become sort of a running joke because sometimes it's the divorce maker. We don't usually fight.
It's a divorce piece.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and we always seem to put it together in situations where we have not quite enough time, and it's extremely high pressure, and it's just not a piece that works like that. We've come to love it, but it's taken a little while. So that was out there.
So it's the couples therapy piece then. It exposes where things are a little prickly at the moment. Is that maybe accurate?
That's fair.
But here's okay. Pat, you and I haven't done any duos in a long time. But I do recall every once in a while I'll practice and just poke your head around the corner. Usually with all of the care and wariness of approaching a wild animal.
Yes.
Brahms, have you thought about?
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, this program that you're doing with OCMS has lots of moments where you have not one, not two, but 4 soloists, plus the rest of the ensemble. So how are you, when you're starting as a duo, how did the two of you work together? And then how do you expand that out when you have even more cooks in the kitchen?
I think that, at least the way Sarah's approaching it now and leading it, it's inherently very collaborative. So I think by virtue of the fact that we know each other with the people that we're playing with Henry, with Mary, it feels like a little bit like a licensed jam session, like where like this is what we're doing. Especially with Henry, I mean, we played together. He's come to our house a couple of times, and
we actually got in trouble because we
played together.
Nerding out on trios till way too late, and somebody
we did
knocked,
it, like lost track of
hey
time.
Guys, this sounds awesome, but it's midnight. Could you?
It was literally a note, the nicest note. Like I love it. It sounds great, but you might.
You might not.
But anyway, so it's not feeling like we have to worry about like any kind of hierarchy or any kind of. It's just very equal, and especially how the pieces are written, both the Vivaldi and the Telemann, which I imagine we'll talk a little bit more. They're just they're written in a way that everybody gets their moment, and it's lovely to make room for each other. So it feels great.
Was it always that way? You know, so that duo program in your living room was the first one, but you would go on, Sphere Ensembles is a really big one, and then also you would do multiple Baroque programs, and I know you join in a variety of capacities. Looking for headshots for Alejandro, I kept like, here he's conducting, here he's singing, here he's playing violin.
There's a joke that I'm adding, I should have taken a picture of it, something like conductor / voice / cowbell. So I've apparently added cowbell to my resume. I'm not a great. It's very hard to play anything well, but cowbell, don't take it for granted. It's hard.
Who let you have a cowbell?
It's a very interesting question. So one of the Sphere arrangements was paying homage to Tito Puente, and there's this amazing piece that he wrote, and one of our arrangers just like such faithful. He did such a faithful arrangement of it, and it just needs some cowbell. And I was like, well, everybody's playing. Alejandro, what are you doing? And I don't know. So there you go. And I didn't know the SNL reference, which is kind of crazy, and now I do, and of course I think of it every time. Anyway, we digress. Cowbell and
so other duties as assigned.
Yes, exactly. Which we know very well, right?
Yes, that's your never ending.
Masterworks 2. Did you tell him about Masterworks 2 and having your seat right in front of the podium so you could conduct ballet dancers? Oh, goodness.
I played that, yeah.
I don't know if she had told you. I had to direct the little kid ballet dancers because it was Heartland Youth Ballet. And so I kind of made up different hand signs for the different movements they had to do. Amazing. And so that kind of became a joke with all the principal players just sitting right in front of them. They would all just kind of like, doing things like that. And they'd all like, oh, is it time for this again?
Nice.
Things like that. But yeah. Other duties.
Yeah, just, whatever we need.
We figure it out.
Very much is assigned. Whose idea was it to start putting ensembles together then? Was it just a natural progression, or was it something you'd always wanted to do and now that you had the opportunity? Like, how did that kick off?
I mean, in the case of Sphere, I was just Sphere started way before in 2011. Well, way before, not that long ago, but a few years before I joined. And it was very much like there's a certain sense of maybe pride of being non-conducted. And I don't know, I feel like there were a lot of groups that were like, 13 players, 0 conductors kind of thing. And like, okay, all right, you do your thing. And the group kind of went through a period of like a little bit of hiatus. And then one of my friends, who now is the executive director, asked me if I would consider joining. And as a player, as a conductor, and I love him. He's like my best friend. A large part of the reason why I'm with Sarah. And anyway, so I said yes before I thought about it too much. And it's been a great experience because it's just, I don't want to say forcing, but encouraging me to make music in many different ways. Like when you have to stand there and conduct an arrangement of Bohemian Rhapsody, I feel like it just makes you grow as a musician, period, and makes you have different tools that then you go back to a Mozart symphony or to something, and I feel like it's better. I would like to think. So that was the thing with Cheer specifically.
Yeah.
But with Tonos, with the one that you put together, I think that has a different genesis.
Well, I think all of us are kind of always like, we want to play. So you play with your friends, and then that kind of grows. But
Right.
Tonos was sort of the one I direct. It was a course at Indiana University first. It was open campus wide, and it was basically anybody who wants to come. You just must agree to be approaching this in a historically informed way. So everybody played Baroque instruments. Some of them brand new to it, and some doctorates in Baroque violin and everything in between. And then kind of the most enthusiastic and like really the people already in that field professionally, we sort of morphed again mid-pandemic. And Tonos is still, I don't know if I said, primarily focused on Latin American repertoire of the Baroque era, and slightly on either side historically, in a historically informed way. So that one,
It felt like a natural.
yeah, just kind of outgrowth of that. Yeah.
I want to chase a few rabbit holes, and I actually have a question for you, because in our household, one of us is extremely up to date and aware on Baroque ensembles, and it's not me. It's Pat, and I feel like there's a tradition. So there's no conductor. 13 instruments, no conductor. 13 people go in, 0 conductors come out.
Right.
But you have this established practice of there's a leader, there's a Ludwig Güttler, like there's always somebody who's spearheading the group. So when you choose to listen to a Baroque recording, when you're in our basement working out to your latest Bach cantata, right? When you're looking at who to listen to, are you looking at that leader, or are you looking at just where it comes from, or
The band itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say, there's, the Netherlands Bach Society, the Swiss Bach group, Rudy, whatever his name is, and Pygmalion. It's more like, do I want to listen to something I'm familiar with, or I'm way behind? This was kind of a pandemic project of like finding, what are like the agreed upon best cantatas. Never finished that. Rather short list. And then I don't know, this one has an interesting thumbnail, and let's listen to that one. I don't know that one. I guess it usually comes from one of 4 or 5 groups that I'm familiar with, but it's not specifically. I might then go compare after I've enjoyed the first one.
So do you feel like I'm going to go back to Güttler just because it's the one I'm most familiar with. Did you find him as a trumpet player and then kind of devour his discography from there, and that led you on to Baroque rabbit holes, or?
Yeah, I think so. So oddly enough, my dad had a 5 CD laser light Christmas selection of generally Baroque and then some classical stuff, but there was one that was trumpet and organ with him, and then maybe a Baroque one that had some of his ensemble. And so it wasn't, I don't think, until maybe late high school or college, certainly once I figured out interlibrary loan, I had maybe 3 to 5 of his CDs early in college or high school, and then I tried to get his entire collection by the time I left Madison. And that was about the point when I saw that he conducted things, and whether, I don't think any reviews said his Mozart symphonies were anything special, but certainly Baroque music of Dresden, who else has recorded Zelenka and these other curiosities. So, I just find him, he was definitely instrumental in expanding my library, and his sound concept and the purity of his playing is extraordinarily nuanced, I think. And then I guess I trust him as a leader to give me something that is high quality or interesting.
So the reason why I ask is obviously you two get to conduct. You are leading as a violinist.
Mhm.
What, as conductors, can you take from instrumental leaders, and what can you take from conductors to make bringing an ensemble like this together, or informing an ensemble like this? Like, what can you all bring to the table?
I mean, could go different ways with this, but for me, it's quite humbling, honestly, to just get back and play. It just really reminds me of how important it is to be not that we're not practicing musicians as conductors, but like, we're not making the sound. We have an influence. I very much would like to believe that we have an influence, for better or for worse, in the sound, but we're not making the sound. And so it's just nice to remember how to make the sound and how that translates to the gesture and the communication with the ensemble. So that would be my short answer on that. But if I'm approaching it the other way, like I guess they inform each other. Conducting helps playing, and playing helps conducting.
Mm-hmm.
Say brass player, like, how long do you go without playing at all? Or like, if you know something's on the radar, at what point do you say, I need to start playing X amount a day to have my chops done?
Yeah. Well, I'm taking that little tangent there. I mean, this particular project was admittedly probably the most challenging for me, because I've been going through probably the driest stretch of non-playing for a while. Like, I don't want to admit how many months, but like more than 3, less than 6. Is that fair?
That's fair.
So you didn't play it?
That I wasn't playing. No, I mean, I just, you enter in the room and the case just like winks at you, and you feel guilty. And those are those moments where a lot of our colleagues, I think we've maybe talked about this, Serena, but you have to at some point kind of make a decision. And I don't want to make that decision. But anyway, to your point, I was like, I need to like teach myself how to make sound again. Like, it just felt very foreign. Like, I took my violin out and I tuned it, and it was just like, okay, long tones, like the fingers just were, So for me, this was like almost a month ago or 3 week, every day, like trying to.
So very similar. I mean, for brass players, certainly after a week or two, I mean, we would have to essentially start over with the exact fundamentals. Like, you just can't skip, you can't jump into something.
Yeah, I guess with strings we get a little bit away with it a little longer than a week or two, but then it's like, I don't know who said that famous quote of, it was Heifetz or Casals, or you don't practice for a certain amount, you notice, and then finally the audience notices the whole progression. So anyway.
So with this dry spell, and I'm curious about flute as well, do you feel like when you return to your instrument, or when you make a point of having regular practice sessions with your instrument, does that help you on the podium, or do they still feel completely separate?
I think, well, so the last time I sort of played flute consistently was during my conducting degree. We would have conducting orchestra, and I would always, because we made the schedules, I would schedule myself first, so then I would release the second flute player and then play for my colleagues for the rest of the session. I really enjoyed doing that, but did I practice much between those? No, it was more of a, the experience of feeling what it's like to be a musician under certain things, and to kind of, learn from that. But
so the flute was less important just than actually just being in the ensemble. The instrument could have varied and you would have felt the same.
Yes, but then there's a conducting program for Aspen Music Festival that requires instrumental videos.
Right.
So I recorded with Christy actually in October, just like, 2 pieces. And that was when I was like practicing consistently again. And I found that having spent 2 years on conducting, I felt so much more free playing the flute, rather than kind of being in the flute only like student, like everything is just so obsessed about all these little details. changing the focus to kind of the whole orchestra. It was like, oh, what things really matter versus what things don't. And I found that to be very liberating, and I approached the flute very differently when I started practicing for this kind of thing again. But have I practiced since then? No. So I would say greater than 6 months at this point.
But that's really interesting. Yeah. And I'm gonna ask now, Sarah, like, when you are in this position of leading the ensemble, does that change your approach to the instrument at all, or are you trying to maintain how your violinist perspective and just kind of expand it outward?
I'm not quite sure, but I will start by saying it's really hard for me, and I imagine other people, to play my part well and also lead well and also listen really well across the whole ensemble. Like, it's like a level up from string quartet. So I feel like in rehearsal, I don't necessarily play very well. Like, I try to overshow gestures maybe, so my tone like pushes beyond where I would take it in the concert, or like kind of really a lot more ugly sometimes maybe. And then with cueing especially, like thinking of it like a conductor, if I beat myself to my own cue, I am early to the ensemble, but as I'm also the conductor of sorts, I have to cue ahead. So like trying to find that balance where I give the cue, but then I line up with the principal cello bow. Like, it's like kind of messes with your brain. So trying to do that, and then also like react to things happening in real time. Like I like making a very detailed rehearsal plan to work from, but then, spring off of. So as I'm, part of the problem with both your hands being busy while you're playing, like I'm playing from the score on my iPad, but I can't stop and like mark something, nor can I like flag a page or anything. So sometimes I like, 52, 52, 52, 52, and then I'll go back like, what was wrong with 52? Or I'll remember, where was that spot? And then forget about it. 138 pages back, like I'm never going to find it again. So I've been kind of struggling with that. It's helpful when the leader plays well. So like, how do I lead by example, but also show things clearly, but also make sure I can hear everything else going on? Like that's always in flux, which is challenging, but also really exciting. And it's really refreshing to be on the other side. Like, play a lot with Indianapolis Baroque Orchestra, and the concertmaster is absolutely fabulous. I love how she leads, and she's, in my mind, like a lot of the things I would love to emulate as a leader. Like, how does she do that? And specifically the cue trick, like you cue and then you line up with the bow. That's her. But just trying to.
It sounds terrifying.
It's kind of it's like you're playing mind games with yourself, and then if you get too far down the rabbit hole, then your cues are just garbage. So
can we do something for the people who are on video for this? Because obviously, Chuck, we're recording video and audio this time. This is better work. If anything happens with either of these, I'm in so much trouble. But for those of you who are watching on video, can we do just a quick conducting lesson? Because in our orchestra, I don't even want to do it. In our orchestra, essentially, you're playing with the conductor when at the top of the rebound. So, boom.
Maybe you shouldn't, but okay, we'll leave it there.
I feel like that's pretty standard, where it's like you just have to expect that with every group in a way.
So is that just like the massive version of what you were just talking about? Like just the horrifyingly huge version of I have cued and I hear the sound nanoseconds after I anticipate it? Or
yes, I also think you're describing the sense of which we talked about before, the sense of living in the past, present, and future, where you're in the future trying to cue, you're in the present trying to make a good sound and playing, but then also in the past remembering and rehearsing and all that stuff, and you're kind of in flux constantly, which is I still think is the most challenging thing about conduct. It is not anything technical. It's this exactly what you're talking about, the leading. So I think there's just, you're 99% a conductor, like your job, what you're doing is yeah.
Do you think it's so another Baroque industry leader is Jeannette Sorrell, and she leads from the harpsichord. Do you think obviously there are concertmasters who do this really well? Susanna is one. Indianapolis Baroque obviously is another. Who's the concertmaster of Indianapolis Baroque?
Adrian Post.
Adrian Post. So they both do that really well. Do you feel like though the harpsichord is that possibly more natural to regular conducting or more congruent to regular conducting? Because when I've seen videos of her, like she can essentially stand up, play, and it's like her upper body is giving what a baton would do.
I feel like actually, no shade on Jeannette Sorrell, but I feel like actually a violinist has more freedom because I have my whole scope of my body. Like I can take a step forward, I can take a step back, I can lift up and down. And especially like we're playing modern instruments, Baroque bows, but with a Baroque violin, my chin is even off. So I can move my head entirely independently and also my scroll without disrupting anything here. Whereas a modern is kind of like you're stuck together. So like I have a whole range of motion as long as my bow is close to the right part of the string. I think physically a violinist has the advantage of like more physicality. I have seen sometimes like dual continuo keyboard rolls where the one, especially for like a big sacred Bach work or something like a St. John Passion, where the one just reinforces the bass line, which frees up the right hand to conduct, and the other is the full-on continuo player realizing figures. Yeah, so that's kind of a nice hybrid too, because then they can, if you do that, it's sort of like face-off harpsichords or organs. So the one who's also this conductor-y role is facing, especially when there's a choir, and then one hand at least is free. So maybe there's a hybrid. And also I'm obviously biased as a violinist, but I do know, like, especially as a kind of tall violinist, like I have a lot of real estate I can use to express. Yeah.
I think also that where we have an advantage as violinists is sort of the animation of the sound, the cueing, the like gestural element of it. And I think where maybe a keyboardist as a harpsichordist has an advantage is filling in those gaps, the sort of motoric, kinetic, filigree little like within that sometimes if we're too gestural things, like I think we are trying to find that sweet spot in rehearsal today, since we've been rehearsing like all day today, just finding those places where the tempo is inevitably settling. And whereas a conductor would ideally not let that happen. That's part of our job. It's like, nope, we have to be in that future, noticing that unless we remain in the future, by default, we're going to slow down. And I think that the harpsichord, in a way, like a great harpsichord, can really lead the machine from within so successfully, where no amount of cueing and swinging and whatever will do anything if it's not like within that.
Somebody pushing you on the small of your back in the best possible way, like you will keep moving forward. Yeah.
How about brass players though? Because so obviously, going back to Ludwig Güttler, but also the Baroque sack butt is very much a thing. So how do brass players achieve the same results as?
So within the orchestra, or
as a leader, like how would you?
I was like,
I play bass notes. I don't know.
I feel like I'm always overcomplicated when I'm trying to like start, a sectional or even like a duo. I'm like, Mark Hetzler always gave a like a little grunt or something. Yeah, and like, or like he or John Ailey would say like, well, the trombone, like you can give a nice. 3, 4, like, yeah. So, I don't know, and then other people are just, but yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any Baroque ensembles led from the trombone, but that makes me very much wonder. Yeah, like with Güttler's conducting Christmas oratorio and he's playing piccolo trumpet, I assume it really just falls on the violin, and if you're just listening but watching more of the concertmaster or the keyboardist than him, but who knows? I wasn't there.
Also, can I just jump in that with this earlier rep too? I think the idea that like there's one head and then everyone else kind of like follows that vision. I think that's a model that came about a little bit later. So like, yes, one person should initiate the cue or it's chaos, but it's like everyone has a bigger leadership role within their own thing too. So like you don't make the same shape as the section next to you necessarily or that kind of thing. So it's like much more of a collective responsibility, I think, than than maybe it all being on one person. It does help to have one person like kind of have a rehearsal plan and sort of keep things on track on like sort of the logistical side, but I would say there's a lot more shared responsibility in this earlier rep.
Is that because these ensembles tend to have single people per part for the most part, or very few people per part? So it's not like a Strauss string section where you have 24 violins ideally and 16 violas, whatnot. So you have to have that individual responsibility.
Yeah, and especially people that really get into the rabbit hole of historical performance, like there are mild nuances, of course, and then there are things that people discuss. But in general, you arrive with kind of a similar vision, like we know, this is in French style, and we know what tuning and what temperament and how we're going to do the ornaments and beat hierarchy and phrase structure and harmonic awareness. So we all start with that. So it's not like all of that has to be kind of delineated. So then, like, if there's an ambiguity, then you discuss, or like, is this a hignola, or are we not going to do a hignola, or half the group's going to do a hignola? Like that's where the push and pull comes, and I feel like it's easier to make collective decisions with that rep.
Yeah. Speaking of rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Okay. Your doctoral work, your thesis, is in Latin American Baroque music. Is that
yes.
Okay?
Yeah. Nice research.
Yeah. How and what? Like, at what point did you decide this is my jam?
Well, I got my doctorate in historical performance, so I was already halfway down the rabbit hole. I did it half in modern too, but partly because of that course I taught.
Right, but like, so I'll back up a step then. Mm-hmm. At what point did you decide historical performance is my main source, my main interest?
Well, it's a little bit Alejandro's fault in the best way, because we overlapped at Boulder. We met at Boulder doing our masters, and I remember saying like, "Hey, you should play in the early music ensemble. It'd be fun." And I was like, "Sure, I want to play this guy."
I'm in it, and I would love to for you to be in it too. But yeah,
yeah, and I wanted to play because he was in it, so that was like the first step, and then various other random grad school things happened to end. I got the first chance to play on gut strings a couple years later, a Baroque bow, and it was so cool.
I should give a lot of credit to Elizabeth Farr, the professor, harpsichord professor at CU Boulder. She really opened our eyes into this whole world of thinking about music in a different way. Mm-hmm. That getting to be part of the early music ensemble was kind of a perk, but it was really just being in her presence and just really how she started to teach us to think of really, like, I think we should all be thinking of music much more as a language and much more as rhetoric and much more as these hierarchical things that sometimes we forget when we're trying to play or perform in a way that is very linear and really, so I think, I still think of her as Dr. Farr, but she's amazing. Her recordings speaking of recordings and rabbit hole, she has a lot of recordings on Naxos, and she's really amazing. And so that was, I think, our first foray together. And maybe I did it a year before you, but then we just have been, and then you just
kept going down the rabbit hole. Yeah, and it's been really great today. We just started, but handing a string player a Baroque violin and bow does not make you a Baroque violinist, and conversely. So you can do it on any equipment. It's easier. Some things just make more sense on gut strings with your chin off with the right bow. It's that's what they meant. But some people kind of get really quite adamant that it must be the correct thing, and there's a place for that, and that's admirable too. But I would say where the concept and the mindset is really what makes me excited. So how are they thinking of this music? How does understanding how they were thinking about this music actually bring it alive today? Because it could sound like this really kind of musty, scholarly, boring thing, but actually it's it's more like jazz than anything else we have in the classical world. Please don't do what's on the page, but to know what to do on top of it, or how to bring it out of the page is the whole thing. In Latin American rap, there's a ton, and there was kind of a big phase in, I want to say late 90s. A lot of groups in the U.S. were really excited about Latin American Baroque rap, and there's kind of a huge surge of recordings, and then that sort of died off. And then there's been a bigger interest lately in cathedral archives that have music that has not been heard since it was written. And so back full circle to your first part of your question, my doctoral research ended up being about this pupil of Corelli, Italian guy who moved to Mexico City to make a go as an opera house violinist, and then they needed him as a chapel master in Durango. And it's this incredibly virtuosic, bizarre musical mind, kind of in the middle of nowhere, who completely transformed the landscape of music in northern Mexico, along with two other pupils of Corelli's in key places. And
What was his name?
Santiago Billoni.
Okay.
Fabulous, fabulous music, and it's been transcribed now, thanks to a scholar in Chicago, Drew Edward Davies, but not very much of it has been recorded, so working on that.
Okay. So let's...
Pause.
No, I'm trying to like weave this together because I'm so excited. So yes, so let's talk about the jazz comparison, because if you ever see like a fake book, right, it's the chart, and you have chord changes and you have the melody, and then it's kind of like, okay, friends, have fun. And there's so much that's not there that you are just supposed to know, and I think that's a really great comparison. How would they think about this when they were actually playing it? They would just know what you were supposed to do from there. Like they would just, a harpsichordist. I'm still flabbergasted by any harpsichordist who can read those continual parts and just do funky things with their left hand the entire time. It's like, absolutely not. It's like having an independent entity just attached to you and doing fun things. So absolutely, I love that comparison. And then the other thing is remembering how many composers. What composers used to be, right, is just like, okay, you belong to this church now, and we need new music every single week. We need a cantata, Bach, get on it. And just churning it out. And so, yes, it would have been performed a couple times, and then shelved, and then moved on to the next thing. So thinking about how many people wrote reams and reams and reams and reams of music that's not hopefully been lost, but just has never been touched because there was no reason for it. So,
well, some of the good ones, like the pieces that were apparently hits, I'm sure this happened in Europe too, but definitely in Latin America, the next chapel master, sometimes their records, like they paid this much per page to have this particular piece recopied because the one they were using had fallen apart so much. So they would like go to the shelf, like, oh, I don't feel like writing something this week. Oh, let's pull out Billoni's Mass from 2 years ago and let's do it. So this sense of like rotation of pieces, like we can tell the popular ones because they paid to have them copied.
It's like a Blockbuster VHS.
Yeah.
The worn out ones get replaced.
It's the Space Jam of news.
And we also know that those composers, like, they had all this amazing Renaissance polyphony that they paid to have recopied because that's how they were teaching the choir, like, how to do their jobs. Like, yeah, it's really cool stuff.
Okay, so completely left-hand turn, but you did say Renaissance polyphony, and I was, for some reason, I was thinking about music theory class from school, and Somewhere is a Kumanin was stuck on my head.
It's so good.
It is good.
Now to sing through.
Alejandro.
No. That's it. My tututi, that was it. That's it. That's all you got.
Alejandro, I've had to sing multiple times now. Serena has also sung. We rock, paper, scissors for it.
But my favorite was
It's
Don Juan. The Don Juan quote she sang.
Which one?
Don Juan has more sex than I do.
Oh, I didn't know.
I don't know that one.
What one do
I
you
don't.
know?
Just no words. No words. It defies the words. No,
That's not fair.
no, it's great.
The mic is here, Maestro.
No, I do want to talk about the jazz comment though.
Yeah, please.
Sorry. see how I got out of that?
Back when he was
There you go. That's all I got.
thank you. But he was, all I would have to do is turn to him, and he's like, I'm going to give you all of Mozart 40 in 30 seconds. We're like, thank God.
No.
Someone's going to sing
In
all
like
the themes, and it's not.
2 minutes. I'm kidding. No, but the jazz thing is just, I just keep thinking about that because I think one of the many joys of performing this so-called Baroque music, which of course wouldn't have been necessarily called that in its time and all that, and then we juxtapose that with what we're doing as orchestral players and as orchestral conductors, like sadly, I think we've lost some of that spontaneity, some of that, like, what's on the page that's not on the page that we should do, or what's not on the page that we should do. And then we get to somebody like Mahler, who is just wanting to make sure he tells us as much as he can.
He's like, look, I wrote my anxiety out like a diary.
Yes, and this is how you will do it. But it is also a pleasure to read his scores because it's like so clear. And so in that sense, almost like we're like respecting this vision and we're re-executing it. And that's the beauty of it too. I think with some of the repertoire that we're doing with this program with OCMS, I think it's cool that, yes, it could be Brandenburg 3, which is arguably so overplayed. It's wonderful, but it's like, okay, there are other things. And I love it, don't get me wrong, or Bach Double, which I'm very happy to get to play with Sarah, but also like there are other, so how are we going to bring these same parts that don't have that much information, quote unquote, and really do it differently? And I think maybe we can find more of that variety as a jazz player would in some of these older works, and I wish we kept that tradition going a little bit more into the orchestral rep that we feel sometimes. I think because of excerpt, because of training, because of like, how should this sound? Which recording are we emulating? That I think we've lost some of that. And I think, that's a little sad.
And it's jarring to join an orchestra and to play something that you have practiced as an audition excerpt for your entire adult life, right? Like we did Heldenleben back in 2014. And maybe I'd gotten to play Heldenleben like once before, and I just felt completely discombobulated because we did different things, or we took more rubato in places I didn't take rubato, and you just want to put your hand up and be like, maestro, I would like to not slow down there, please. That's very hard. And you can't. You have to go with the ensemble. And so this sounds like because you're playing with friends, because you are very comfortable with each other, it does sound like you could tap into that even with works that you feel are very familiar. You can bring something new to them.
Right.
But that brings me to my next point. So how did this program come together?
Mary actually picked all the music and then approached the people about playing. I think it was Mary and Jay in that dialogue, and then they asked us to play, and Mary asked me to do some of the leading, and then I bowed a couple violin parts, and then Mary bowed the rest, and it was like very collaborative. But it's Mary's brainchild. So, yeah.
And my next question, because you two have gone down this rabbit hole, because you have this deep love for some of the unknown but deserving Baroque or historically informed music, right? Is Bach your end-all be-all? Or are there other composers that you would love for people to listen to?
I mean, in terms of like a composer I'd come back to over and over and over, I would say Bach is very high up there. Telemann, just wonderful variety. If we're talking like high Baroque here, I just love Rameau. I could play Rameau forever and be happy.
Weren't you listening to Rameau during your race in college?
Yes. I listen to a lot of Rameau.
It's crazy.
She was like hours of Rameau.
Yeah. Bring in the wind machine. I mean, what else do you need?
Ensemble. Pygmalion with it's so good. But also some of the earlier composers, like if you love Bach, you would love Buxtehude. I'm pretty sure that was the famous organist that Bach walked for 3 days to go hear him play or something. In his Membra, Jesu, Nostri. It's just incredible. And then I really, really like the even earlier stuff, like which maybe lesser known, but like the Schutz sacred works, or I like Bieber.
You played Bieber on your recital.
Nice and early.
And there's lots of great stuff. This whole jazz thing, and I don't know if anyone knows, makes me think of Rolf Lislevand, the violinist who, the first recording I heard of him was on the radio in high school, and that's the CD, and that's probably the last liner notes of the CDs that I read. But it's he gets these codices, and I assume it's like just kind of one line of music, but then he like flushes it out with like 3 guitars and percussion and vocals, and it's like, oh, well, how do you like? Maybe there's some text. I don't know. Like, or is it? I think the songs in my head, the pieces in my head, is just more like wordless singing, but like, yeah, how in bounds is like? Would it have ever sounded like this 400 years ago, or did he just? I don't know. It's one of those. This made me think of that, but I have no idea where he draws the line in its authenticity, but it's lovely stuff. Cool. Sorry to completely sidetrack it.
No,
Thinking about it for
actually,
20 minutes, but it's like I was hoping someone's like, "Oh yes, I love."
I don't know, but now it will come up. But also, like that word authenticity is sometimes charged in historical performance circles. Like, oh, well, I'm more authentic. Well, ultimately, it has to be compelling to people today. So, like, hopefully, a historically performed performance would not go about something that's like contrary to what we know was important at the time. Like, let's not accent resolutions, for example. But if you're only not incorrect, you haven't actually like you haven't said anything. So I actually think one of the most compelling performances of the last movement of Brandenburg 3 is the Punch Brothers. It's like fiddle, banjo, mandolin, double bass, guitar. It's awesome. It has swing. I would say like that sounds like an awesome recording to me.
But this is why I fell in love with Bach's Christmas Oratorio, because I heard Bella Fleck's group do Ich will nur, and just like, oh, well, this is a rump.
There's a heavy metal Christlagen Todesbanden.
So good.
That is so good. I think Bach would love it.
I think you should add all of these songs at the bottom of the.
I'm gonna have to listen tomorrow with a notepad, so I can insert things into the video.
That Christlagen Todesbanden is like,
it's incredible.
Which I think just speaks to how amazing a lot of this music is. Period. How it just stands to be performed in so many different guises, and how I dream of the day where we don't have to say anymore we're playing something in a historically informed way. It's just music and, Brahms? Okay, well, what do we know? We still don't know what Brahms sounded like. I mean, we really don't know. We think we know. So how you play Brahms? No, we don't. But let's play it in a way that is compelling. And even Mahler, and even some of the composers that tell us what they want. I think it's just, I long for the day when we have less of these divisions and labels and things like that.
On the flip side, there is a recording of Brahms symphonies played on, I think, Baroque instruments, no vibrato, and all that, which is fascinating. Yeah. It is awesome.
Yeah,
Clive Brown recorded the Brahms Silent Sonatas with the historically appropriate piano, and it's really lovely.
It's really
amazing. Yeah, and also the Ironwood Ensemble is getting into a lot of Brahms chamber music with that approach. They're Australian.
So I think what we were like experiencing, maybe, or no, certainly I think that we're talking about the 90s with some of the Latin American Baroque, when was the like rebirth of some of these historical performance currents in the US, like 70s, 80s. Like I think now we're getting to Mendelssohn and Schumann and Brahms and, historically informed, like the example that you just brought up, or
Symphony Fantastique.
In period instruments, but and it's
and
really
Mahler
revealing.
With Glissandi, that one recording,
So I think our modern idea of
but yes,
it's so good.
It's so good.
Gotta get into it.
The Brahms I'm thinking of, I think, is it in Adam Fisher, like 2 years ago, like with 40 people. Mahler, keep saying Mahler. Sorry, Gustav, leave me. Brahms, I just do Mahler now.
Power of Christ compelled.
Yeah, exactly, a little bit. But how Brahms, a lot of his preferred performances were orchestras of like 40 people. And
Charles McHarris did that, like, midnight.
That's true. Yeah. That's true.
Say it louder for the mic.
Oh, I don't know. Telarc in about 1995. The Scottish Chamber Orchestra.
Yeah, all the McHarris recordings are amazing too. Yeah. But there's a couple from a couple years ago or last year, which is again just feels so, because it's a video and like it just feels so alive. And I'm just like, I'm not saying that that's better than what sometimes we do, but it's just cool to know that what we sometimes do is not the only way.
Yeah, I will absolutely give you that. I find it I had to do a deep dive, speaking of Mahler the other day. And really quick one. And he wrote his first symphony when he was like 27 years old. He was still a bebe. And he hadn't composed very much leading up to that, but he'd done a ton of conducting. He was already doing that quite often. But what really struck me was this moment where he and a bunch of other students went to hear Bruckner 3 at this, apparently the most disastrous premiere Bruckner had ever faced, where the audience actually booed the symphony to a halt.
Oh my gosh.
And then it was just...
Those were the days. no, but I mean...
How do you really feel about... No. But what struck me about that story was not only did Mahler and the other students stay till the end, but then they presented Bruckner with apparently this piano transcription of the symphony. So they like made haste to give him something he could play for himself. And there's something, this idea is like in Bruckner's head, he's got this monstrous symphony and this collective organ right in front of him. And that's being booed, but now he's been given the ability to play it just by himself on the piano. And I wonder if that felt just as powerful. And
sorry, you're saying there's a link between Bruckner 3 and Mahler 1? Since they're both in D minor.
And I don't want to go on a record to say that, but what I'm saying is...
And Beethoven 4.
I'm going to be dragged out of my bed by the Illuminati in the middle of the night. Like, how dare you? But I do love the idea that sometimes our original ideas can be transformed in a way that we never dreamed possible. And I'm just imagining Bach would have, or Telemann or Vivaldi, Albinoni, would never have conceived of this, possibly, of their music still being played this far after they were gone, and how they were being played and what instruments and everything like that. But also this idea that you can take a Brahms symphony and you can mess with the numbers or mess with the vibrato. You can take a Beethoven, you can take a Bach Brandenburg 3 and give it to the Punch Brothers, and it becomes something exquisite, and then it means something different in that moment, but it can be just as powerful as the original. And I like that idea. I'm not like Brahms, Brahms is just so neat. Like it's not bugging me so much. It's just like I want to do it to see how it feels, but also like I want the 8-person bass section because I want to be a tank. But
it reveals so much about the music that I don't think for me when I first heard it, I hear it so differently because I'm hearing something so different. But it really, there are lines that you hear that you don't normally, that are like with so much vibrato that just kind of things like that clarity and texture where you're like, oh, the winds can sound like this when the strings are doing that, or
they're not fighting a sea. Okay,
right, or just the kind of the pacing that you can feel when you're not kind of like stretching the end of every phrase or every section, like things like that. It allows you to see the bones of it and see.
Yeah, and I would say that it's not an issue of numbers, but the approach to, like, you could have 8, 12 basses
and still get
playing
I think so. And just issues like that of vibrato, but also just the transparency that you can achieve with different. I think it's more about that than numbers, right?
Yeah. Is that also the joy of programs like you're doing on Sunday, where you as a collective group can make a decision? And the approach can totally transform the music on the page. Is that part of the experience?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't really ask anyone, but we've been sort of diving into it, historically informed, like as a way to make the music come to life. But also each person's voice gets to come through, especially in the Vivaldi. I think that's probably the most chance for individual expression, but also speaking of bones, or like what's coming through, we've worked in rehearsal quite a bit about like really being aware of what is the primary material, when does it start, who has it, what is the shape of it, and then what does everyone else do in the meantime, maybe just for time, and also the expectation in like a big symphony is like, you don't have the melody, you have mezzo piano, and the person with the melody has a higher dynamic, and that's just kind of it with maybe hairpins and dashes. But this is like like we all kind of come at it from a fundamental understanding, having rehearsed it, and then I think it's more empowering. Like we get it. We're not just kind of doing what we're told, but it's like a vision that we are bringing to life because we've bought into it. And this has been really fun because I feel like everyone is buying in. There's no like, oh, I'll do this because you said no. It's like we're all in, which, yeah, I don't know if I totally answered your question, but
Yeah.
Well, and I would think that this is, in an ideal world where we want to continue to discover and do more in the orchestral setting, maybe it's just because of time, like to do the same thing that we're doing in an orchestral setting, it would just take that much more time. And in how the models, the economic model and the sheer amount of programs that one has to go through in a symphony, and between all the things that we do, maybe it's just not practical, but it is, I think we're not doing that different from each other. It's not, I don't want it to sound like it's that different from the so-called Baroque approach or the historically informed approach.
No, but when we bring in this idea of the Brahms, where it only works if everybody's on the same page. So yes, you could have 3 times the amount of string players. You could do it with 12 basses. As long as everyone's on the same page and is willing to commit. It's committing to the bit from go. And I think I'm not necessarily saying it's easier in a Baroque ensemble, but I would like to believe that when you sign up to do this, it's like you don't have to say, I also agree to commit to the bit. Like you're already there.
There's more agency built in. Yeah.
Right. It's and I also think, when you were talking about the 70s and 80s, this resurgence of historically informed performance. I have a great memory of Mr. Hirsch talking about playing a historically informed, some sort of classical concert complete with candles and ruffs, lace ruffles, and someone's sleeve catching on fire because they had real candles.
Oh my gosh, yeah. That's one of the approaches. Yeah.
How much lace should we expect on subject?
0. Actually, that's kind of been a interesting way people have taken historical performance. Like you do a Baroque era opera, do you stage it and costume it? Also historically informed. Some people do, and it's gorgeous and really expensive and amazing. But I don't know if you've all seen that clip. There was a couple years back a staging of a Rameau opera where they set it in like modern France with French street dancing, and it is one of the most powerful things.
It's in the Jocelyn Art Museum.
Oh, cool!
Actually, being shown that video.
Cool.
Clip.
Okay.
We saw
So
bits of
cool.
it.
Yes,
Or just
so
randomly
cool.
online.
that arrangement. I don't know if you did it, but you had performance practice notes.
Yeah, I
that you
did.
arranged.
Yeah,
That remote that gets performed. Well, we performed it for Com 1
Mm-hmm.
this year with your
That's so
notes
cool.
and everything.
Yeah.
It's that specific movement of that piece that's being played at the Jocelyn Art Museum.
Cool. Yeah, and it's a fascinating commentary because the actual subject matter of the opera is really problematic. It's like talking about the people the colonists encountered as savages, and so this dance, it's like, okay, well, we're going to put this incredibly powerful modern street dance up against this incredibly elitist opera for the king, and put those together, and it makes something absolutely incredible, and great music, incredible commentary.
Yeah.
I'm kind of obsessed with that. Also, one of my friends played in the pit. So. Yeah.
So I think that kind of historically informed approach, I think it's more what we define. It's not trying to replicate what we think would have happened, but it's just looking at the music, if anything, with more fresh eyes.
Mm-hmm. And if we're going to
with all that
in costume, I think we'd have to take it with the degree of seriousness that we take the music. And I think sometimes when historically informed music falls flat with costume is that the costumes are usually kind of an afterthought, and they're not professionally tailored and made by a costumer and the right fabrics and all of that. Done well, it could be really amazing, but most often I think it gets in the way. So no lace. Really long answer. No lace for us. No costumes.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that there's no lace.
No candles either. It'll be really safe.
The conservatory, I think, would prefer no candles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This has been wonderful. Of this program, what piece are you most looking forward to getting the audience's reaction to?
You mean like a sort of a collective boo moment or an audible gasp?
I want them to boo you out of the... I'll give you an example. Programming anything, it becomes very much your baby. And so, like, in our last Masterworks with the Angelica Negromor Vivi, like, that was my baby. And I'm kind of sitting there like, please love it. Right. Because if you love it, I will feel okay about myself. Now, it's not healthy to tie those two things.
Yeah.
But I'm always curious. You know, obviously, Mary Perkinson, you said, chose the first going with Jay, which is great. But what piece are you looking forward to the audience experiencing the most?
I think maybe the Hesse, actually.
Yeah.
Because maybe that's one of the lesser known, I would guess, on the program, and it's awesome. Like, there are a lot of kind of heavy metal rock star kind of moments. It's plenty of elegance too, but that one is just fun. It's really fun. Yeah. For
me, it's been really lovely to go back to the Telemann Concerto for Four Violins. It's just really cool to be a bass and a tenor and an alto and a soprano all the time in different times. My dream come true. Finally, I get to sing all the voices. No, but just I think it's healthy for melody players to remember how it feels to. So I think the audience might just be surprised that four violins can actually sound good without the very wonderful presence of a middle voice or a bass voice. Like the way he wrote it, it's really clever, and there are things in the score that even more so-called modern editions have just done away with. Can I give the one away? You know what I'm thinking about?
Yeah, I do.
Like our edition of the first movement of the Concerto for Four Violins, the Telemann, starts. It says whatever it says at the largo and quarter notes. So you think largo, quarter notes, you're already thinking a thing. Turns out in the manuscript it says largo and staccato, largo and very short, which already is like, who do you think you were, Mr. Editor, to take a staccato away from it? That's like,
it changes everything,
right?
Yeah, it's critical. Yeah.
And so instead of going, whatever, wom, we're not doing that. And it's just such a
you have to come on Sunday to hear for yourself.
Exactly. And we started rehearsing it just today in the last kind of 15 minutes. We're exhausted, but we just to even feel that, this is how this could be. And talk about if I were to conduct something like that, like immediately my gesture would have to be completely different. And it's just like, yeah. Anyway, so I think the Telemann, even though it's a very well-known composer, for me, I think that concerto is just so awesome. And I hope they will just, really enjoy it and have fun. And show it.
Is that something you guys do often, is go back to the manuscripts and
yes.
things like that?
Yes.
Are they very easily accessible normally, or?
More than we think.
I think pretty much everything's on IMSLP, which is amazing. And then, every time I make Foley's for something that I can find the manuscript, I always check the manuscript. Also to see what they miss. And then
the Hase, we discovered a lot of things.
The first edition is actually quite legible, but there's sometimes bars are split, and just for the sake of time, we wanted everyone to have really clear parts to look at. So we got a modern edition. It's terrible. There's misprints everywhere, right and left misprints. So actually, in hindsight, we might have saved more time playing from the manuscript, from the first edition. But yeah, IMSLP is pretty good. And then the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
I never remember what it stands for, but Bach's manuscripts are. Thank you.
Ausgabe or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Vivaldi, usually the first editions are up on IMSLP. Lots of time. Right.
You're right. What are people thinking that they're just making? Do you think that later editions fell victim to the assumptions of historical accuracy?
I think with some of this music, there's IMSLP, again, kind of fascinating. There'll be the manuscript and the first edition, and then if it's a piece that was kind of popular, you'd see more editions throughout time, and especially the Corelli violin sonatas. There's Corelli's. Then there's one where a contemporary of his supposedly wrote down his ornaments as he did them, which are fascinating, even though they're probably not what he did, because you can't catch those quickly enough. And then there's edition was okay, we'll do some of these, and here's some fingerings and some bowings. And it's like, well, here's some figurines and bowings and dynamics and ornaments, and then like, oh, and here's a piano part. So you can get like really far away, and so maybe it's just like a game of telephone.
I think that talking about Brahms again for a second, that is it Berlin Philharmonic, the Harnoncourt, Nikolaus Harnoncourt recording, conducting Berlin with Brahms' original parts of when Brahms was alive. So the bowings are different. I mean, the bowings are the bowings that they had, and it's like, oh, it's interesting, and it's still Berlin Phil, which has, of course, that incredible tradition, and so, yeah. At what point do we start to decide that? Because it's the one thing with the bowings, the slur that Brahms put, but like, how did that translate with bowings, especially when Brahms will write a slur that goes across like 3 bars that is unplayable, and now we all agree as musicians that is, I know he's showing us the phrasing. And I always wonder about that, because it's like, yes, but what exactly? So anyway, that could be an episode for another time, for next season.
For wind players, for sure, we think the same, because there's no way we're doing the whole thing slurred, or like as we traditionally think of what a slur is. So we tend to do what the string players do, but that always changes and depends, and everyone has different, or like what for a wind player does a staccato under a slur mean?
Yes.
Right? That's such a Brahms versus whatever versus all that.
And we're even doing that here with this, a lot of the Baroque things that are one, tan, 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 tan. It's like, what about ba, 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 or what about wah, wah, wah?
Right.
Like so many ways to put a slur under short note. Anyway.
See, and coming up is just like, Mozart is the short, Haydn is that short plus a little bit of like pop fizz, and then Mendelssohn is you add a little bit of cocaine to that.
Right, and then
Beethoven is longer, and Brahms is longer than Beethoven.
Right.
And Nielsen is drunk Brahms. And then, so everything is just, oh my gosh.
I think that is
like generalized.
But at the same time it's quite useful in a way when you're teaching, I'm just meaning like students, this kind of basic style of, well, what makes Mozart Mozart? And that is kind of defining the articulation. You know, who has the shortest staccato between Haydn, Mozart, Schubert, Beethoven, and you know what I mean? Like you're kind of, to be able to define it rather than the kind of analysis paralysis of the options are endless. What do I do?
Yes, absolutely. Except I think what I'm hearing is at some point we all decided that we knew better, and then at some point we got this music. It's like, oh, well, he clearly meant. No more it's staccato. What? Who in the world? So in reality, historically informed performance, of which we are hoping we never have to use that phrase again, come the future, is like trying to rectify the damage of decades and decades and decades of people deciding that they know better, and then trying to bring the music to life in the place and the time that you're in.
Yeah,
that's a nice way to put it. In the meaning, like, how does that feel today? Right? Yeah. Not just what we can't possibly know from 100, 200, 300 years ago, but like we take as much as we know, and then we juxtapose it with today. What does that mean?
Right.
And like ultimately, it's not about being right. I think that's probably the most important conclusion. That I don't think we want anybody to think that anybody's going to be right.
We're saying that our way.
This is the right. You come on Sunday, you'll hear
right
the right. Exactly.
Oh my God, no.
I mean, you should come on Sunday. Yes. You should definitely hear this, because it sounds absolutely wonderful. But yes, I would say there might not be a singular right way. There are plenty of wrong ways.
Fair enough.
And that starts with being disrespectful, I think, to the music itself. But it also sounds like you two and Mary and this ensemble has made this tremendous point of being committed to the bit and respectful and ready to play from go. And I'm so excited to hear you all do your thing. And yeah, it's been so much fun. Thank you guys so very, very much. Last thoughts. Are your favorite pieces on the program the Hassa and the Telemann, or do you have different favorite pieces on the program than those two?
I mean, I will say it's very special to get to play Bach double with Sarah. For many reasons. And the second movement, it's just, I mean, come on.
Do the Sandstrom as an encore.
Yeah. And then we will know. We'll be like, oh, I love you so much.
Let's hack it for 137 measures and see if we line up together.
Yeah, at the quarter note
notes,
equals.
168.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so
Divorce
hard.
court theme just plays in the background.
Yeah. There you go. Which is Beethoven. Distorted. No, that's true. I don't know. Never mind.
Well, it's the People's Court I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Sarah, what's
Okay,
your...
okay, okay.
Is your... It's Beethoven. It's not copyrighted. If it's Beethoven,
That's right.
you've only heard the bass line from Saturday Night Theater. You imagined it. You didn't hear it. We just
This is all going into the bloopers part of the episode, right?
bloopers.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Really?
Good.
And by bloopers, you mean the entire episode.
Yeah,
Sarah,
exactly.
is your favorite placeholder program different from the house?
It's hard to pick a favorite. It's like a favorite child or something. But there's a really cool moment in the Vivaldi four violin concerto. Forget what movement. It's one of the middle ones where he's layered all these really specific instructions, and everyone has something different. So the solo cello has forte sempre, or sempre, whatever, Italian, Spanish. Be loud all the time. Then the violas have the same rhythm, but it's said to be always soft. And then the fourth violin, it doesn't matter who has what, because I can't remember off the top of my head. Somebody has single 16th notes, somebody has 16th notes slurred in pairs, and you have so 3 and 1 and 3 and 1, and I have like this crazy barrelage, and it says all of that in words, and he's just made this incredible tapestry out
I
of
feel
this
like Philip Glass couldn't have done like Vivaldi invented it right there.
It's so cool.
So amazing.
It's like this I feel like it's like this twinkly thing on top of this incredible texture. So that's a favorite moment of mine.
Vivaldi walked so Philip Glass can run. That's the title of the episode.
I love it.
Thank you all so very much. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being here. So good
great
to see you all.
And I'm just so in love with the
Firefly?
the fireflies. I just can't focus.
missing
Like,
them.
we have missed them so much in Omaha. So appreciate your fireflies, people.
I'm hoping that they show up on the actual video proper.
There you go.
But Chuck, we made sure we hit record, so at this point, if it doesn't work, we did everything we could. This is only for Chuck. This is a podcast for one.
Sounds great. Chuck is wonderful.
Pat, Serena, Alejandro, Sarah, happy season finale.
Thank you, Danny.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you all next season.
See you all next see you Sunday, June 22nd, 3 p.m. at the Omaha Conservatory of Music. Alejandro will be singing everything.
Yes.
And Cowbell.
And cowbell.
In case you missed it this year.
Right.
He'll be back.